Hi everyone, my name is Ravi. I'm currently working as a Ab Initio technical lead in a financial and banking domain. I'm having around 9 years of Ab Initio developer experience, and I worked with different banking clients and investment clients. So I'm going to teach you Ab Initio. As you all know that Ab Initio having a huge demand in current software market. So most of them are looking to learn how the Ab Initio works, and they wanted to train in Ab Initio and they want to cross skill in Ab Initio. So learning Ab Initio is very simple. As I said, like Ab Initio is an ATL tool, and it is a graphical development user interface tool. So learning Ab Initio is very easy. So the mostly as coming to the prerequisites to start learning about Ab Initio. It's very easy. You just need to know two skills. One is Unix, the basic knowledge of Unix, how you're going to log in Unix and how you're going to create files, a simple file commands, a simple operational commands. So that's the basic knowledge of Unix you need. And the second one is SQL. At least you need an intermediate level of SQL knowledge, because most of the Ab Initio deals with building any databases or a data warehouses and all the ETL process, which is extracting, transform and logic, where you need to apply a lot of business logics by joining a different data types and a different data sets and create one consolidated reports. So by that, if you already have an SQL knowledge, and it will be easy for you to understand how this Ab Initio works. So I suppose that you have this minimum knowledge of Unix as well as SQL, then you are able to understand what I'm going to teach you in further classes, because all the terms which I use in the upcoming sessions, so almost they contains this terminology, like using the Unix servers and some scripting, or using SQL statements like joining, roll up, gathering, group by, order by. So these are the minimum functionalities which we are going to use in upcoming. So yeah, and I'm going to plan to complete this course in around 45 days, and it would be around 25 to 30 minutes in a single day session. By that I will try to cover at least one topic and give you a real-time experience how this Ab Initio works. By that it will be helpful for you all. And I hope you will enjoy this course. And please do follow, subscribe and share. Today, this is our introduction class for Ab Initio. So you all know that Ab Initio has a lot of demand in software programming. So most of them are using this Ab Initio software to perform ATL operations. Why Ab Initio? That's the main question. And why we use Ab Initio? That is the second question. So what I want to say is, first let me give the introduction why we are going to use an Ab Initio software. So Ab Initio software is an ETL tool which is used to perform or to build any data warehouses or databases. So basically this tool is used to build major enterprise applications. That means to build any applications to perform extract, transform and load. Okay, so now as I said, like Ab Initio is an ETL tool. So E, T and L. So E means extract, T means transform, L means load. So which gives you the meaning of, we are going to extract data from different sources and we are going to transform the extracted data, and we are going to load into different types of, either it's a database, file system or any application. So this how we are going to use this ETL to build any applications. So to learn about how we going to use this ETL, first of all we need to have a clear understanding how the data looks like, why it's necessary to use any ETL tool, any ETL tool to create this process or to load data from one source to other. So basically, let me give you an example. Consider a small example of DMart. Okay, so you all know about the DMarts. It's a store where we all go for shoppings or to buy groceries or etc. So let's say if I take one city, let's say consider Mumbai. Okay, in Mumbai there is a chance of we are having multiple DMarts. So each, let's say we have around 10 DMarts in different locations. So each DMart has one individual databases. Let's say for each database they have different tables, different data they will store, like how many number of products they are dealing with, what are the vendors they are dealing with, what are the transports they are using it, what is the stock, inventory. So however, what are the data, so everything will be stored in this particular database. Now let's say I am the manager of city Mumbai of a DMart, and now I want to know which location DMart having more revenue and which having less revenue. That means what I need to access is the data of all the 10 databases, and I need to consolidate all the data from all these 10 databases and to create one consolidated report. So if to do that, we need one application or a software which will directly extracts data with multiple sources and to combine or to consolidate into one single report and to create one database. So for this kind of solutions, we use ETL, as well as you can see banks or any healthcare industries or any domains. So wherever there is a necessary of dealing a huge amount of or a huge volume of data, or where there is a necessary of creating transactional data or a daily based data, and we need to perform a different kinds of transformations, we need one software to deal with all these applications and to create one or multiple different sources of data. Okay, any questions till now? Okay, so now as I said, like we are dealing with data, correct? So what are the sources can be the data will be? The data can be of many sources, like either it can be a file, it can be a CSV, it can be an Excel, or it can be directly we are getting from a website, or we are extracting from another database or a data warehouse. Whatever the data source will be, so in Ab Initio, we have different types of components which will directly interact with those data sources and create an extraction point and extractions to our building a graphs. Okay, before going how the Ab Initio function works, let me explain the architecture of Ab Initio. In Ab Initio architecture, there are mainly three components which we regularly use, and these three components are most important to build any Ab Initio graph or a plan. Okay, so what are the three main components of Ab Initio? The first one, GDE. The second one, co-op. And the third one, EME. Okay, now let me explain each component individually. What is GDE? GDE is called as Graphical Development Environment. and co-op is called as cooperating system. EME is called as enterprise metadata environment. Okay, so graphical development environment, GDE. Basically, all our development works like building a graph or building a plans, whatever it is, everything will be done through this GDE. Let's say this GDE will be installed on your Windows system. Basically, our Windows is a graphical user interface operating system. That's why all the GDE will be, mostly GDE will be installed on Windows server, where we can open the GDE and we can use different components that were coming from the Ab Initio, and based on these components we build Ab Initio graphs and execute the Ab Initio graphs. While executing a graph, okay, the components needs to be converted into a machine language and they should execute. Further, this cooperating system will be used. So what this cooperating system will do is, it will convert all the graph and functionality into executable format, and it will execute those graphs in this co-op version. So basically this co-op is either a Unix or Linux server. And the third one is a EME, that is enterprise metadata environment. So basically all our code which is developed by from the GDE will be saved in this EME. So that's why we call this EME as version controller. That means if a user developed a graph and he saved that graph and he do check in that graph, the graph will be saved into this EME as a version 1. If another guy did any changes in the same graph, and that graph will be saved as a version 2. Like this EME repository maintain graphs versions. Version 1, version 2, version 3, like that. It can, how many number of versions we create, that versions will be stored in this EME. So a user can use any type of version, checked it into their sandbox area, and they can develop a graphs. So as I said, GDE, it is basically used to create all the graphs, and the cooperating system which is used to convert all the components into convertible applications and executes and follow the process. And this co-op is based mostly installed in Unix or Linux. Let's say I want to create a graph just to read one input file, okay, and I just wanted to create to combine, let's say one example. I have one input file, okay, it having serial number, first name and surname. Okay, this is my input file. Number 1, roll number, first name is Ravi and surname is Manepalli. Now my business user wants me to consolidate this file, first name and the surname, and create one more column as a full name. So that what we call it as a transform. So we create a graph to read this input file and create one transform function. In this transform function, we write a logic to concat first name and surname and store this data into another field called full name. So our output file would be contains surname, first name, surname and full name. So these are the sample type of examples where we can do different types of, either we can do a mathematical operations or a logical operations or different types of transformations. So based on the business requirements, we will build a different types of Ab Initio graphs, okay, Ab Initio graphs, and create necessary outputs based on our requirement. Okay, any questions till now?
No, so far it's clear.
Yeah. So we are clear about how this co-op is and what this GD is and what EML is. Okay. So before going into actual development, you need to understand few tech terminology which we use frequently while developing any Ab Initio graphs array plans. So the basic terminology which we use were,
Abinitio is completely code free or?
no, it is not an open source. It's a licensed software.
Okay.
So all the clients or business users, they will purchase the license for this from the Ab Initio, and they will allocate license for individual users to work on the GDE. Okay. So basic terminology which we use is, the first thing is sandbox. So sandbox is nothing but a workspace where we develop our Ab Initio graphs. So let's say, you know that I already told you that operating system stores in Unix or Linux. So basically, Unix or Linux is a command user interface which we don't have any graphical oriented. So all the data will be stored in files. So everything will be managed by the file management system. So like this, if you have a path, let's say there is a path of home in your Linux server, and your user, let's say my user is Ravi, and we can create a sandbox. Let's say I have created one more folder, sandbox. Okay, this would be my basic path. This would be my basic path to create any sandbox where I can store my Ab Initio graphs. Let's say I want to work on a project called any college. Okay, so let's say my college name is Chester. So now I am going to create a project for a Chester. So what I will do is, I will create one directory or a project called a Chester. So this would be my main directory to store all my Ab Initio objects. So in Ab Initio objects, we will have mainly graphs which are stored in a folder of MP, DMLs in the DML folder, any SQLs which will be stored in SQL, plans, psets, bin. So these are different types of folders where we store similar types of objects into one folder each. Now if I say a sandbox, home, Ravi, sandbox, this is my home, my default directory, and the Chester is a project. In this Chester we have other directories called MP, DML, SQL, plans, where we store different types of MP. Let's say employee.mp and client.mp, college.mp. So all the graphs will be stored in this MP folder, and the DMLs which we use will be stored in this DML folder, and the SQLs which we use to extract data will be stored in this SQL folder. So like this, the default data directory structure will be created in our sandbox area. So while we create a Ab Initio project, we create either a public project or a private project. So you might have now ask, what is this public project and a private project? So public project is mainly used to store a common DMLs where it can share all the objects with another private. So private is basically for one particular functionality or a module, but a public project can be contains a common objects of a Ab Initio objects which will be stored in, which can be used for any private objects. Okay, any questions? What's the sandbox is?
What is that MP actually stands for?
MP is a directory where we store all the graphs.
Okay.
So all the graphs will be stored in this MP folder. DML, all the DMLs, like basically DML is a language where we specify the record format of a data. So the next question is, what is the record format? So what is the record format? Is a record format is which a user specify how the data looks like. Let's say we have let's say an example, take one table, employee table. Okay, it having fields, employee number or with employee ID, employee name, location, department. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns in this employee table. So we write DML as record, employee ID, separator, let's say comma separator, and employee name, separator, location, separator, department, separator. So you can see that department is the last column. That's why we will specify this as a /n, which means end of the record. So this is how we write a record. But you need to make sure not giving only the column name, you need to mention the data type of a particular column. Let's say employee ID is a decimal, so you need to mention a decimal, and employee name as a string, location is a string, department is a decimal. Okay, so in the syntactical way, how we write is decimal, separator, and name, which is your employee ID, and the similarly string, separator, employee name. So this is how we basically write a DML. By that, Ab Initio recognize how the data is in that particular table or a file. Okay, so I will show you how the component look like, and how we going to write a DML, how we are going to read data from Ab Initio graph, building it. Okay, so coming to the next session, we will see what are the types of components that are available in Ab Initio, and how we are going to write a DMLs, and how we are going to read data, transform data, and write data into different forms of output files. And we are going to learn what are the types of components for each functionalities, either to validate data, to transform data, to aggregate data, or to normalize data. So all these functionalities, we have different types of components, and we are going to discuss in the upcoming classes for each component, how we are going to use each component, how we are going to build in our graphs. By that, we can read data correctly and perform our necessary transformations and create our output files. Thank you. And I hope you will enjoy this course, and please do follow, subscribe and share.